Good day. It is the 28th already, May 2021. Today's presentation is going to be a little bit different than my previous ones, a little bit lighter, but has a good object lesson. I think one thing that we all want something that we don't have. And Christianity, we would say what we all really want is God. We strive for God, but we don't. We can't be fulfilled with anything in this life. So this is going to be a brief presentation on someone who had everything in this life, really came from very humble beginnings, I think tried to be of service, and that is the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. Now you may know, you may not know, but the most requested photograph in the federal archives is with Elvis Presley and President Nixon, when Elvis is presented with a DEA or our forerunner, Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs badge. Elvis wanted to be a federal agent, and I'm going to do a real brief biography on him. Then I'm going to do a memorial on one of my DEA brothers who was killed in the Gulf War, the first one, 1991, and then a little bit of discussion what I'm going to cover next week. So let's take a look at this, and hopefully you recognize him. Maybe you don't, but if you don't, you probably should. And again, some people have everything in life, but they start off with nothing. And very short life, lived to age 42. But at the same time, compared to a lot of entertainers, particularly even of his time, or certainly now, I think he's someone who always wanted to be of service. I mean, he was born in the year 1935, dirt poor. This is the home where he was born. Father had nothing. His father was in jail, actually, when he was born. They gave him a guitar when he was 12. He wanted a rifle, but they gave him a guitar. He started to play in church. And that's where he began to develop some skill. And then after that, he lived in Tupelo, Mississippi at the time. He would go along and just frequent the different music stores and listen to things, and eventually began to perform. And he was discovered, and by the age of 22, was world famous. Women loved him. This is him in Minneapolis signing autographs. He had his kind of goofy, some of it. I mean, I think he learned how to dance actually by imitating African American entertainers. But be that as it may, he was great. I mean, people liked him. He was a multi-zillionaire. And then comes along something that is unexpected. He gets a draft notice from the United States Army. Now, he could have done any number of things. Again, this is a guy, by this time, probably has $40-50 million, which in 1957 is about $500 million today. What could he have done? Well, he could have probably just arranged to fail his physical. And in fact, each branch of the service, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, had the draft center. They said, hey, we will give you a special deal if you choose our service. Now, when you're drafted, you don't get to choose your service, but they said, we'll give you a deal. And each one said, you can travel around and just wear your uniform and do concerts for the troops or the sailors. And that'll constitute your 2 years of service. No heavy lifting, and you won't get out of practice or anything. And what he said was, no, I want to be treated like everyone else. I said, you sure about that? Yeah. So he accepts induction into the Army. But again, he wanted to be treated like everyone else, and they even, of course, shaved his head, just like they do to everyone else. Then they put him in the Armored Division in Germany because he didn't want to perform. He donated his $90 a month salary to charity, and his commanding officer didn't like him because the German girls would follow him around, when he was driving for the commanding officer. But he did take good care of the Jeep. Excellent care of the Jeep. He was promoted meritoriously to sergeant. He took care of his unit. He bought everybody an extra set of fatigues. He was a good guy. A lot of people with all that money, to put him into a military enlisted kind of environment wouldn't do well. He did do well. He was a great soldier. But one thing happened where, kind of took a turn for the worse. One of his NCOs introduced him to the habit of taking amphetamines because they kept him awake and kept the NCO awake. And they said, I could not get through the day without them. Here, try them. And he started trying amphetamines. And he got out of the Army and, continued to perform. And Again, very famous. But again, his drug use began to get worse. He had a personal physician who would write him scripts, and in his mind, so long as he was taking drugs from a doctor, there was nothing wrong with it. You fast forward to 1970, and Elvis gets on a flight from Memphis to Washington, D.C., and on the way, he writes a note to President Nixon. And in the note, he expresses deep concern about the drug culture and the hippies and so on and so forth. And he wants to help the country. So he states in the letter, and he says, I have no concern or motives other than helping the country out. I can and will do good if I were made a federal agent at large, and I will help out by doing it my way through my communications with people of all ages. First and foremost, I'm an entertainer, but all I need is federal credentials. And he then writes where he's going to be staying, and he'll stay as long as it takes to get the credentials of a federal agent. Says he's done in-depth study of communist brainwashing and drug abuse, and he's right in the middle of the whole thing, and he wants to be of help. And then he doesn't get a response, so he goes to the White House, and they let him in, and they call over to the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, which is the forerunner of DEA. They say, bring a badge over for Elvis. They bring one over, and this picture is the most requested photograph in the Federal Archives, where Elvis is awarded a Federal Narcotics Agent badge. Now, again, a lot of people will say, well, he just wanted a badge. He just wanted to be able to carry a gun anywhere he wanted to. So I really don't think so. I mean, when you look at the pattern of his life, he went into the Army when he didn't have to. I think he had pure motives. I think he wanted to do the right thing. People want to make fun of it and everything, but I think, in his mind, he loved the United States. He wanted to do the right thing. Now, as time went on, you can see he's getting heavier here. It's just the tolls of all the medicine he's taking, all the drugs he's taking. And besides that, just, he didn't know how to be wealthy. I think it's easy to be middle class. It's easy to be poor. Sometimes it's hard to be wealthy. And he dies very young, at age 42, on August 16th, 1977. So in my opinion, a guy who tried to do the right thing, his heart was in the right place. But I do have a soft spot in my heart for the guy. And as most of you probably know, we're coming up on Memorial Day, which is in memory. It's something else we owe to President Nixon, along with the DEA. He formed the DEA, and Memorial Day became a federal holiday under Nixon. But it's in memory of all the men and women who've lost their lives in combat, from the Revolution to present, most of whom have been forgotten. And one that I would like to call to your attention, Eugene McCarthy, a DEA agent, graduated from the Naval Academy, served 11 years as a Marine Corps pilot, then joined DEA, and but was killed in 1991 in the first Gulf War. So may God rest the soul of Major McCarthy, or Special Agent McCarthy, buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and all the men and women who have died, laid down their lives, sometimes for absolutely necessary things, other times for things that may not have been necessary, but they felt it their duty to go. And thank God for them. And I want to thank God also for anyone who wants to go into law enforcement, anyone who has the guts to serve in law enforcement or the military right now, because those are not easy professions. Okay, so anyone who's planning to go into those, or anyone who is in them, you have absolutely my 100%, beyond 100% support and admiration. And my prayers are with you. Anything I can do to help you, I will. And don't get discouraged, that's the biggest thing. Things sometimes look dark, but they're not, keep trying, and you're going to get in. Now, you may not get the exact job you want, but look, I had put in for things that I thought I wanted, and in God's good grace, I didn't get those, but I got what I was good at, or what I would be best at, so, keep that in mind also. You're not always in control, and sometimes you don't get something it's for the good, but something better, or something that's better for you is waiting right around the corner. So please keep that in mind. And may God bless all of you. Have a nice Memorial Day weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.